And one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Thursday morning from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. A couple accidents to report, one at I-26 eastbound and Greystone Boulevard. I actually got caught in that when I was driving in a little bit earlier, so be careful because that is a lot of slowdowns coming through that area. Today, guess what? It is going to be hot once again with the highs in the mid-90s with a chance for some afternoon thunderstorms. High tomorrow is going to get up to 100 degrees as we get into your weekend. Some chance for storms as well as we go throughout the weekend, too. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. At 9 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on The Game. Another day closer, Jack. 38 days until kickoff. We are George Rogers days away from South Carolina having toe meat leather against Virginia Tech. I can smell it. We're getting closer. 30 days away from week 0. Ugh. Get me there. Just one more month.
Man, we're almost there finally. I'm really looking forward to it. As we all know, it's just around the corner, man. Like, fall camp's going to be starting. Well, actually, players will report a week from today.
Yep.
And then fall camp will start a week from tomorrow. So 8 days away from fall camp, and then add 30 more days onto that, and you're getting closer to the regular season beginning. So I'm really excited. Week 1 cannot get here any sooner.
Well, you were just telling me a moment ago you'll be heading out later this afternoon, going up to your home state of New York for one last little getaway before, again, we have to lock in for basically the next 5 months all the way up until basically Christmas with everything going on with football.
Yeah, this is pretty much the unofficial end of the summer for anyone that is in the sports world for covering teams and stuff, specifically football. So, yeah, like you said, this is it for me for the summer. So, be back up in Columbia next week, every day, getting ready to rock and roll, and we'll have a lot to talk about throughout the next, like you said, 5 months.
Yeah, maybe we'll actually get an eligibility ruling on Rasul Faison sometime between now and then, or maybe that's a pipe dream. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That might not be coming anytime soon. We'll see.
We'll certainly see. A lot to get into. Including maybe looking at the opposite side of South Carolina's 2025 schedule and assessing what could go wrong this year. I'll explain that in just a moment, but it is 9 o'clock, and as always, got to kick things off with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Jack, would you say this has been a pretty fun and positive offseason up to this point when discussing Carolina football? Sellers is in the Heisman conversation. You're going to be likely a top 15-ish team in the first AP poll. Obviously, a lot of exciting matchups. I'd say we've been pretty positive about this team for most of the offseason. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I would definitely say so. I think this is one of those off seasons that, again, there are a lot of similarities to the 2022 going into the 23 off season where you're coming off some really great success, and now you got those expectations of, okay, you got to go out there and do it again. But, yeah, no, for sure. For the most part, it's definitely been a really nice off season for this program. Of course, besides Rasul Faison and that whole situation. But besides that, I'd say it's been pretty good.
And I'm glad you brought up the 22 to 23 offseason, because I think that's a perfect example of the fan base riding high, coming off of 2 huge victories against Tennessee and Clemson at the end of 2022. And again, a spirited bowl game effort despite having only half your roster against Notre Dame. But, you had Spencer Rattler coming back. You had a lot of good pieces coming back for that 23 season, and that was my first year going into covering this team. Everybody was excited, and plenty of reason to be excited. You're being talked about, discussed as maybe one of those dark horse SEC championship type of teams or whatever, and then everything fell apart. You went 5-7. You dealt with injuries. Some players didn't live up to being as good as we thought they were going to be, and it was a rough season where you end up missing a bowl game. So, and this fan base, unfortunately, in my couple of years here, I think always has that concern in the back of their mind. And we ran a Twitter poll the other day at 107.5 The Game that asked, hey, the SEC media ranks South Carolina 5th. How are you feeling about these expectations? The options were love it, well-earned, cautiously optimistic, and nervous/Gamecock PTSD. Cautiously optimistic did win with 59%, but nervous/Gamecock PTSD came in second at 27%. So you have the people there that I feel like are almost worried about getting too happy and too excited, right? Do you ever have that in life where things are going well for you and like you want to be really happy about it, but you're worried that the other shoe's going to drop and it's going to come crashing down, that you're like, well, I need to temper my expectations here because of all the things that could go wrong?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, you mentioned that you've been here long enough to recognize how often this happens here. I mean, I see it all the time with South Carolina fans of, they got to definitely temper their expectations because, and there's this thing that, the chicken curse or whatever that
oh yeah,
I thought was supposed to be broken when they won a national championship. At least that's what the baseball documentary that recently came out told us, but I guess not.
I feel like people can use the chicken curse to justify their own belief in whatever's going wrong. Right. So, if when basketball's having the bad season that it had this past year or baseball, I'd be like, yep, there's that chicken curse again. That again, I thought, like you said in the story documentary of like, hey, it went away when you actually won the championship. But again, I'm, it's a long-standing thing for Gamecock fandom lore. So I'm not gonna down you for still believing in it, but it does still get brought up from time to time.
Yeah, and I thought it was supposed to be broken when they win a national championship, even in women's basketball too. But
yeah,
I think the thing with South Carolina is that you have to look at their history as a football program. Outside of 2010, 11, 12, and 13, where they have such, well, honestly, even during those seasons, there were moments where, despite winning 11 games and going to the SEC championship and all these good things that they did, there were moments that kind of, hurt their chances of, like 2013, they lose to Tennessee on the game-winning field goal. That was a game that, like, if you don't lose that game, you're probably going to the SEC championship, and who knows what happens. It's like there's so many moments that it's like they could have been so much better. Now, throughout South Carolina's history, they've had a lot of down years. They don't have this type of success very often. So I think it's something where I don't want to say South Carolina fans aren't used to it, but like, I think they're used to the fact of being let down. So that's probably why they feel the way they do.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I could see why there's a lot of cautious optimism just because they are losing a lot from this past season, and we just don't know what it's going to fully look like just yet.
So my question of the day is, and feel free to weigh in, Firehouse Subs text line, as well as the AAA Heating Air phone lines, 803-404-6100. What's your most pessimistic opinion of this season? What could go wrong? What could you see realistically happening? I'm not saying that, they're just going to go 0-12. I don't see that happening. Like, yeah, that would be terrible, but I don't see South Carolina being like that. But what is something realistic that you could see happening this season that would take it off the rails? And injuries are low-hanging fruit, so I won't I won't go that route of like, well, if Sellers got hurt in the first game, like, yeah, that would be awful, and that would probably hurt this entire team for the stretch run of the season. But I don't want to go that route necessarily because I don't want to potentially speak something like that into existence, obviously. But what are other things that you feel like could actually go wrong where this season goes in the opposite direction from what last year was?
I just wonder, again, how are they going to replace everything that they lost? I mean, again, we're talking like the defense. You have all the linebackers that are gone now. You have to replace Nicky Minwari, like the defensive line on the interior. Kyle Kennard's no longer here. Like, we're talking about a really historic defense from last year that for the most part, I feel like in a lot of ways, I feel like carried South Carolina at times, kept them in games for sure. But you still have Lenore Sellers, so that's going to give you a chance in every game. I think the thing I would probably be a little bit pessimistic about is the road games they have this year. I just find it to be very difficult. Like you go to Missouri, you go to LSU, you go to Ole Miss, and you go to A&M. I feel like those are 4 games that you could potentially all lose. But then again, you could potentially win some of them. I just think it's going to be tough this year going on the road in the SEC.
2 games kind of stick out to me. 2 of the biggest games of the entire season, going on the road to LSU and then playing Clemson at home here. Because we look at both of those teams as legitimate playoff/national championship type rosters, right? Clemson looks as ready made to win a championship as they have in the past, 6-7 years, basically. It really reminds me of the Clemson teams we had going into, that 2016 season, 2018 season, where it just seemed like they were primed to break through and win the entire thing. So if you aren't up to snuff, if we figure out in the first month of the season that South Carolina is just an okay team, going to Baton Rouge and then playing Clemson here, those games have the potential to get really, really ugly if you are not a quality enough team when you take on those opponents.
And that's why when we talk about this team going into this year, again, the expectations are high and should be high. We talk about them potentially being 5-0 or 4-1 at the end of the month. But what if they're 4? What if they're 3-2? Like they're kind of, in a way, I feel like they're almost screwed in that sense, just because October is going to be really difficult. I think that's probably the toughest month of the season. And then you have November where you have 4 games that really could determine if you're a playoff team or not. But if you already have 2 losses by October, we're talking about a team that is already on the fringe of missing the playoff and would have to win out. So I don't think they're going to lose more than a game in that first month, including Virginia Tech. Like, I think they're going to go 4-1, but
sure,
it's you never know what can happen. Vanderbilt's definitely an improved team, and Kentucky, we overlook them probably, so we'll see what they look like.
Well, and even if you can survive that month of September at worst like 4-1, then the month of October, that middle block, and I keep saying it's October, but I'll include the Ole Miss game on November 1st in there as well. You're playing LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss. What if you lose all 4 of those games? What if you have to go into the month of November sitting at, 4-5, and we're kind of in a situation from 2 years ago, like, wow, is this team even going to make a bowl game? Like, you're scratching and clawing to just get yourself to bowl eligibility at that point, with games against A&M and Clemson still to go, which obviously are not easy contests either. Like, that middle part of the season is so vital and so important. It could potentially swing very, very negative if you're not able to get at least 2 of those wins.
It's kind of crazy because it's like there are scenarios where you could see South Carolina lose a lot of these games. But again, there's also this scenario where you could see South Carolina win most of these games. And I think it circles back to the main point of that. They have Lenore Sellers. Like, that's always going to give them a chance in any game. I don't think there's a game on the schedule that you feel like inherently South Carolina is automatically going to lose. Like, I think there are maybe LSU potentially is the biggest one. But like, other than that, I feel like you look at the schedule, it's like South Carolina will have a chance to win every single game in this season, just because they have a really good quarterback and they have some nice pieces. But again, we got to see it come all together. And if it really does come together, it really could be a fun season. But again, with this program and their history, they haven't had much success after having a really big season. So we'll see if they can kind of replicate and do a little bit better this year.
I'll be revisiting this topic throughout the entire day, so feel free to weigh in. 803-404-6100. Fire Subs text line, as well as the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. What is your pessimistic take or opinion on this upcoming season? What could you see going wrong where we're talking about another bad year for South Carolina? Not saying I want it to happen, but again, it's always worth examining the other side of the coin for how positive and excited we've been leading up to the season. There's always that possibility that things could go wrong. So hit us up, 803-404-6100, for your pessimistic take of the South Carolina team in 2025. One team that has the potential to be very pessimistic, especially coming away from week 1, is Florida State. Thomas Castellanos, he's still talking yesterday at ACC Media Days. We'll get into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. A lot of things to get to around the college football world in a few minutes. But the question of the day that I posed in that first segment there, what is your most pessimistic take or opinion on what could happen this year for South Carolina? Again, this is a fan base that has seen its share of highs and lows, and I feel like a lot of people may be afraid to get too excited about an upcoming season for fear that it could all come crashing down. So what could you realistically see happening go wrong with this team this year? We'll head out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Ian is waiting. Ian, appreciate your call. What's your pessimistic take for this season?
Hey, what's up, guys? So my number, I got like a two-parter for pessimism. Is first things first, if we lose to Virginia Tech, that is going to be, I'll be there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but a lot of people with the success we had last year really forget that it took 3 forced fumbles and really getting it together in the fourth quarter for us to beat Old Dominion week 1. So that right there, if we lose to Virginia Tech week 1, that's going to put us down. We got to go out there and we got to pound Virginia Tech. And then my second thing, this is kind of a negative take, but like I'm really worried about that interior defense. Like the interior defensive line and the middle linebackers, we're trying to replace Debo, who played above what we all expected. And it's just going to be a lot of hurry up and wait, but we got to make sure that we have that interior defense. Our secondary should be good. But like I say, my most pessimistic take, without a doubt, is if we lose to Virginia Tech, I think our season is shot right there.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call there, Ian. 803-404-6100. And very fair point there. The Virginia Tech thing's interesting because this is a game. Carolina's still around a 8-9 point favorite as of right now. And we'll obviously continue to preview that game as we lead up to it 38 days from now. But I feel like that's one that everybody just kind of assumes that Carolina shouldn't have a problem with, given what Virginia Tech was a season ago. They're replacing a lot, lost a lot of talent from a year ago, and it's kind of like you shouldn't lose that game, but at the same time, you shouldn't have been in a 4-point game with Old Dominion last year either, and we all saw what happened here at Williams-Brice Stadium. So, yeah, if you lost that game, you want to talk about starting off the season on an absolute sour note, I think we'd be coming in here on that Monday, and people would be talking about, are you going to be able to win 3 or 4 games this entire year if you're losing to Virginia Tech? Because that is on the very bottom list of challenges that you have this upcoming season.
Yeah, and you mentioned I probably should have been a loss, quite honestly, to Old Dominion last year. You mentioned that game. I remember the day after, people just freaking out about, oh my God, the season's over. They're only going to win like 2 games. They're done. All this and that, and then they go on and win 9 games and have a really great year. So. Look, I understand the sentiment that like if they were to lose to Virginia Tech, and let's not say like Virginia Tech is some pushover. Obviously they're in a different situation. I think South Carolina is, but both these teams are going to be in the metaphorical sense under the lights, playing at a big venue and stuff, and the pressure is going to be on. If South Carolina struggles right out of the gate in this game, they might end up losing it. So they really got to come out here and play well. Season openers have not really been too good for South Carolina over the years. You go back to 2 years ago, the season that we kind of draw parallels to, They lost to North Carolina, and the offensive line gave 9 sacks in that game. So this year, if you get off to a bad start with a loss to Tech, I mean, we talk about the SEC slate being tough. You could potentially lose a few more games in there, and it becomes a lot tougher to make the playoff if you lose to Tech.
That North Carolina game is actually a really good example there. Now, North Carolina, I feel like going into that game was in better shape than where Virginia Tech currently is. Nobody was saying, Mac Brown's on the hot seat going into this year, unlike what Brent Pry has up there in Blacksburg. But coming away from that game, especially with how bad the offensive line looked, we all talked about it that following Monday, like, hey, we're might be in trouble here. And obviously that ended up being a persistent issue throughout the entire season. Now, that did have to do with injuries, which, again, when you say, hey, if so-and-so gets hurt, that could obviously tank the season, that's a very easy pessimistic take to have. I'm trying not to go down that route too much here because, again, like I said, if Sellers got hurt in game 1 and we lost for the season, yeah, I'd have a very negative view of this team for the rest of the year unless, Aaron Nolan just ends up being a superstar or something along those lines, or Cutter Woods, right behind him, right out of the gate. But I'm trying not to go down the injury road necessarily here. But Ian also brings up the point of the interior of the defense. And I look specifically at that linebacker room as one that, again, I see the potential upside for what we've heard of J.R. Johnson, Justin Okoronkwo, Sean Murphy, and Jaron Willis. Can't forget about him as well. He's still hanging around. I know it feels like he's been here for 50 years at this point since transferring over from Ole Miss. So you see what the upside for those guys is, but that's not a guarantee. And again, when you're being compared to what last year's linebacker core did, that's a lot to live up to. And look, they don't have to be exactly like that. They don't have to go out there and replicate everything that those three guys did, but you hope it's not far off, right? Because when you have a good linebacking core, the rest of your defense can follow suit. And they were the big catalyst for why that defense was so strong a year ago. And if you can't replicate something close to that, it could be a very long, tough season for that defense.
And that's why I worry so much, because the defense last year set the bar so high that the casual fan that pays attention to South Carolina, they're automatically probably thinking, all right, this defense had a great year last year. They're going to be even better this year. That's not always the case. And you pay more attention to it. You see, oh man, like our caller said, Ian, there was so much that they lost. They lost pretty much their entire interior of the defensive line, minus Monkel Goodwine and Nick Barrett, who weren't major contributors last year. And now you're asking them to be, plus you're having to rely on other guys that didn't play at South Carolina last year. You brought in from recruiting, portal, whatever you may have it. And that's that's something that it's going to be tough to replace the guys you lost with Tonka, Boogie, TJ Sanders. We're talking about all NFL draft picks right there. So that can be really slippery slope. But again, like Ian mentioned, there is the secondary, which I think is going to be a pretty good, secondary of the season for the Gamecocks with Jalen Kill or DQ Smith, guys like that. I think Peyton Williams is going to have a nice year stepping up. But yeah, this defense, it's going to look a lot different this year. It's just a matter of, okay, can South Carolina strike gold for the second year in a row with all the guys they're bringing in?
And let's look at that interior defensive line as well, because we talked so much last year about that experience. Again, all those guys having their respective opportunities in the NFL now. And again, you look at a guy like Goodwine, you see the potential upside, 4-star kid at Alabama a couple years ago. And Nick Barrett has been around a long time, but he's not been asked, especially, last year because he redshirted, to do a heavy dose of the workload. So can you have the same type of depth on the defensive line that you had a year ago? You have the bodies in the room. I mean, you filled out that room pretty well with the transfer portal and Brownlow Dinley, Xavier Hardy, Miles, Pikes. You have freshmen coming in like Williams and Ingram. So it's not that you don't have guys in the room, but you have enough guys that can go out there and rotate through like you had a year ago, because that's, I think, what contributed a lot to how good your defensive line was when it came to stopping the run, when it came to getting after the quarterback, was you just were able to keep fresh bodies out there throughout the entire season because you had a good rotation, and that's not a guarantee this year.
And I think it's something they're definitely going to be striving for again this year, just because it worked so well in their favor last year to rotate and have different guys out there. But again, like we said, there were so many good veterans in there that honestly probably should have been starters on any given day. It's just, hey, you can only have two guys on the interior there, but that's the benefit because you have so many NFL caliber players on that defense. You're able to plug and play and rotate 6, 7, 8 guys in there, and it works out really well. So they have the bodies, like you said, Tyler, but is it going to equate to the guys who are going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback consistently and make it really tough on them? I don't know yet. That's something that will be answered in the coming months here as the season gets going, but it's something to definitely pay attention to for sure.
Again, it's going to be the conversation all day long, so feel free to hit us up, 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse Subs text line and the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Kathy weighs in and says, Carolina fans have been burned too many times. I'm willing to get too high on our chances. I've seen us fall flat too many times. We'll never forget the opening against A&M, the home, the year Spurrier abandoned the team. That was the year before. That was 2015. Or 2014. I'm not expecting that kind of performance this year, but expectations were through the roof for that team, and look what happened. That's a good point. Again, going back to the trauma of this fan base, you're coming off of those multiple 10-plus win seasons in 2011 through 2013, and I remember, again, I wasn't here locally recovering the team, but I remember the anticipation for what 2014 South Carolina was going to be, and Kenny Trill comes in here and has the game of his life that he never replicates after that again. And that's where the fall for Carolina started. And again, it was the following season when Spurrier upped and left halfway through, but the ball started rolling downhill at that point. I feel like.
Oh man, Kenny Hill, what a game that he had there. I mean that was, I don't really remember the game too much.
Oh, I do. That first game on the SEC Network, I watched that one from beginning to end, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, I mean, what was the final, like 52 to like 28 in that game? It was something ridiculous, and wasting a season of Dylan Thompson. But yeah, look, we'll see what the season opener brings for Carolina. Obviously, the history has not been too good in these types of games, but hey, this is a new era, hopefully, with Lenore Sellers and seeing what happens after last year and stuff. So the expectations are high, and they're doing a good job of handling them so far.
Sure.
It's just now you got to go out there on the field and do it.
We'll continue to hit your thoughts all day long. Firehouse Subs text line, Love Chevrolet, or excuse me, AAA Heating and Air phone lines, 803-404-6100. We will get into the Thomas Castellanos latest quote coming up next, though, and assess this Alabama-Florida State game in week number 1. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday on the game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and also no credit check required. That's right. So if you are the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air, comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We did have Jamal on the AAA Heat and Air phone line that wanted to weigh in on the pessimistic take, but he did hang up. So, Jamal, hit us back if you do want to weigh in while the show is going on. So, we will get into the Thomas Castellanos deal. Of course, a few weeks back, he, in an interview with Pete Nakos of On3, said, hey, we're not worried about Alabama. They don't have Nick Saban. They're not the same tough Alabama that they once were. Last week at SEC Media Days, Dante Lawson, linebacker for Alabama, said, we heard him, and disrespect will be handled accordingly. There was also the clip last week that I played as well of Castellanos at some kind of quarterback camp or something along those lines, basically explaining I was just trying to fire up my team. They went 2-10 a year ago. They need some love, right? And they need a little bit of hype. And yesterday at ACC Media Days, when Florida State took to the stage, he was, as expected, asked about it once again. And here is what Thomas Castellanos had to say about his statement.
You've said some things differently?
Most definitely, but I stand on what I said. Well, we stand on what I said. So I said what I said. We stand on that, and I don't mean no disrespect to none of those guys at Alabama or anything like that. It's just I have confidence in my guys and the work that we've been putting in and preparing and the preparation we've been putting together. So that's all that was. I just no disrespect to those guys, but we stand on what I said.
So the more I've thought about this is if this was being said about any other team, it'd be a big deal, but not quite as big a deal, right? But the fact that you are poking the bear of what's been the dynasty of college football for the past decade and a half, that takes it to a different level, because I think there is this curiosity of, okay, what's Bama going to do about this, right? Because in years past, if you said this about a Saban team, if you say, hey, we're not worried about Alabama, we'll be fine in a week one matchup, in your own venue, they'd come in there and crush you by 40 or 50 points, right? We don't know what's going to happen this time. I think we all had this general curiosity of, okay, Thomas Castellanos is putting it out there. How's Alabama going to respond?
And, it's interesting. I don't think it was in the clip there, but he did also end up saying in telling reporters yesterday that the next day after he walked in to the facility, when he, said what he said initially, the players were like, hey, we're right behind you. Like, we love it. Yeah. We like it. So like when he says we stand on it, that's what he means. Like the players at Florida State are with him on this. And look, I don't blame him for trying to fire up his team and stuff, because he's joining a new school and stuff. He's trying to, I guess, fit in and also get this team going, because they need that juice heading into this year, because they were awful last year.
Sure.
So I understand it, but again, this is Alabama we're talking. They're not that far removed. There are still pieces of Saban's legacy on this team. Deontay Lawson's one of them. It's
Sure.
going to be something really interesting to watch week number one, just because of this storyline in particular. That's probably the number one reason people will tune in to watch this game.
Look, I've played on bad baseball teams. I've been on bad wrestling teams. When you're not good or coming off of a not good performance or not good season, you do need that kind of motivation, right? You need somebody to say, man, blank those guys. We're better than them. We're going to go out there and show them. Even if you're sitting there, you're listening to it like, yeah, I don't think that's really going to happen, coach. Having that positive reinforcement, I do think helps, which if that's what Thomas Castellanos has been attempting to do this entire time, I get it.
Yeah, I would say, he's definitely earned the respect of the guys in that locker room for sure, just because it takes balls to say something like that, that's a lot to say for a new guy on the team. But look, here's the thing: if Florida State can back it up and Castellanos has the game of his life week number one, he's gonna look like a genius. He's gonna look like someone that knows what he's talking about and stuff. And we'll see if it's true. But at the same time, you flip it over. This is an Alabama team that in the past they've made you pay for saying things like that. You think of Vanderbilt talking all that smack, not recently, but back in 2018, and Alabama goes in there and wins 59-0, stuff like that. We've seen it happen before, and it hasn't worked out well for the other team. So we'll see if Florida State can kind of break that trend a little bit.
I look at this game as well as the loser of it, more likely than not, whether it be Florida State or Alabama, is probably one of the teams pushing the panic button the earliest this season. Because if you're Alabama and you lose, you already underachieved last year by going 9-3 and missing a 12-team playoff. And by the standard of what Alabama football is, that is never supposed to happen. You underachieved in that mark. You lost you lost to a really bad Oklahoma team. You lost a game that you should never lose against Vanderbilt. You lost for the second time in 3 years against your bitter rival in Tennessee. Like, last year was bad by Alabama standards. And if you started off the year losing to a team that went 2-10 a season ago, they might be outside of DeBoer's house with pitchforks and torches that night.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, you're right. I think this is kind of a I don't know what the right word, not a benchmark, but like, it's a game that's very defining in the season, because I think it's the biggest one on Florida State's schedule for sure. You look at just the season that they could have. I mean, you win that Alabama game, you have a very good chance of starting off the season pretty well. I mean, I think the schedule's pretty it's bearable for sure. I think you can get through it with maybe a loss or two here and there, but I don't know, because Florida State is coming off that really bad season, and will that trend continue? I don't think so, but we'll see. And then Alabama, like you said, they are coming off that 9-win season, which was disappointing. The thing for Alabama is I think there's more at stake for them, because if they lose to Florida State, let's keep in mind they have to go to Georgia. They got to go play Tennessee, who beat them last year. You got to go to Carolina. You have to play LSU, Oklahoma, who beat them last year. And then you go to Auburn at the end of the year. We're talking about 3 losses maybe somewhere in addition to what happens at Florida State. So to win that Florida State game week 1 on the road is pivotal for Alabama, because I think there is more at stake for them this season.
And on the Florida State side of things, if you lose this game to Alabama, outside of like a last-second field goal where Alabama makes like a 55-yarder to beat you, I think Florida State would feel okay coming away from that. But let's say you lose by like 3 touchdowns. Let's say you don't look competitive. Let's say Alabama just comes in and stomps you like the Saban-era teams typically did in these kind of games. I mean, the panic level goes to a fever pitch. Like, there are already people that wanted Norvell gone after last year, which, again, he had to restructure his own contract because of how bad last season was, to give some of that money back to the school. And his buyout's still high and all those kind of things. But, like, you could potentially lose your fan base in, like, week 1 if this game turns out to be a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, if it is a disaster, you're going to have, people exiting the stands, and it's going to be really tough to win that fan base back over, just because they're so dialed in on seeing Florida State do well. And if it's another bad season here for Florida State, I mean, again, you're 2 years now removed from the 13-0 season. It would feel like that is ages ago if this is another bad year for Florida State.
Yeah, and again, Florida State has had its ups and downs these past handful of years. Remember the end of the Jimbo Fisher era. Again, the Willie Taggart experiment didn't work out, and now you're here with Mike Norvell, and you had the optimism of 2 seasons ago where, let's be honest, you got screwed out of being in the college ball playoff. Complete honesty here, you should have been in, and it's been downhill ever since. And really, going back to that Orange Bowl, it's been just this descent for the past 18 months, basically. So you can get yourself back on track by beating a team like Alabama, or you can just further that worry and panic by getting your doors blown off.
Again, this is what we love about college football. These games, they matter every single week, and this one is definitely no exception to that.
That game coming up in week number 1 down there in Tallahassee. I believe that's the 3:30 ABC game on week 1 Saturday there. We'll hit a couple NFL notes before we get out of here for hour number 1. There's some intriguing quarterback rooms around the NFL that we're going to be keeping our eye on this season. We'll tell you about those coming up next. It is the Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Beltry, along with you on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri with you, wrapping up hour number 1 here on your Thursday on the game. Last show for Jack this week, so he'll be off coming up tomorrow as we wrap up the week, and we'll be officially 1 week away from camp starting at that point in time. 9:23 next Friday, right? Right on the dot.
I think it's 9:33.
Is it 9:33?
Saturday's 10 minutes earlier at 9:23.
Are they pretty good at being punctual about that?
Yeah, depends.
Yeah.
They're usually right around that time, but typically it could be a few minutes later. But we're out there for probably about 15 to 20 minutes both days, so it'll be fun.
Hopefully you guys actually see something aside from just stretching.
I wouldn't hold my breath. We'll probably just see them break into some positional work for a few minutes and then, got to get going. So we'll see.
Obviously, a lot of position battles to keep an eye on for South Carolina this upcoming season. Plenty of position battles going on in the NFL, particularly when you talk about quarterback rooms around the league. And there's a couple that really stand out to me as the most interesting quarterback rooms, one of those being the New York Giants, who Brian Daboll yesterday did announce that Russell Wilson is the starter, at least for now. So going into week number 1, you obviously have Jameis Winston as well as Jackson Dart in that room and Tommy DeVito still. Jack, do you see this as a situation where Jackson Dart finds his way into the starting lineup at some point this year, or is it more of a long-term play of, hey, we're going to go through this year with Russell, and then maybe Jackson will be ready next year?
If the Giants were smart, I would say let Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston hold down the fort for this year, and then next year let Jackson Dart take over and be the guy. I think there's this trend of, teams rushing out quarterbacks right out of the gate, rookie quarterbacks specifically, right out of the gate to start, and you see them, flop, and they're just not really that good. They don't find their footing until maybe they get traded and find another stop. Like, I think of Sam Darnold, like a perfect example of that. And the Jets have a really bad history with quarterback. So, after he left the Jets, he has that great season with the Vikings last year, and now he's earned a big contract with the Seahawks. So it's happened a lot, and I think then you see the guys that wait a year that are rookie quarterbacks, first-round picks, and they get to wait, and they ought to have great success. So I think it's going to work out beneficial for the Giants if they do that. But, again, I think they'll be fine with Russ for a year. I mean, you signed him to a $10.5 million contract, so I feel like you're almost kind of forced to try to start him right out of the gate, and Jameis Winston's a viable two option.
Another room that's intriguing is the Colts. Obviously, Anthony Richardson going into, is this year number 3 now for him in the pros? Still wildly inconsistent. Obviously dealt with injuries as well as other issues. You bring in Daniel Jones to essentially kind of light a fire under him in a sense, but reading early reports out of Colts camp this week, it doesn't seem like any quarterback's really firing on all cylinders right now. It's early, obviously, but nobody seems to have taken the reins of the job right away.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's very early, and once they get into the preseason here, because I expect all these guys to be really duking it out for QB1 duties, I mean, that's where you're going to figure out, okay, who's your starter, and it's just early camp right now, so I wouldn't make too much of it, I would say, but it's interesting because Anthony Richardson, I feel like, has kind of not lived up to any of the expectations the Colts had set out for him when they drafted him from Florida a few years back, and now you got Daniel Jones in there, a guy that really had a tumultuous end with the Giants, struggled a bit, and now he's trying to find his footing and get back to having a starting job in the NFL. The Colts also have Riley Leonard now from Notre Dame, so it's going to be interesting to see. I feel like this quarterback position is really wide open for the Colts. I mean, obviously you'd like AR to start, but Daniel Jones, Riley Leonard, those are nice little options, I think, to have in the back pocket.
Well, this is truly a make-or-break year for Anthony Richardson because, again, you've invested 3 seasons in him now. He's only shown so much, development and improvement up to this point. You have to decide, okay, is this going to be our guy going forward? Do we actually need to look in to the draft in the next year or so to find our potential next franchise quarterback? Because he was an experiment coming out. I think we were all rightfully like, this guy, I get it. I get his measurables and athleticism is off the chart, but him as a quarterback at Florida, not all that impressive. Now they thought, hey, we get him in here, we'll turn him into what we need him to be, and up to this point, it hasn't happened.
The crazy thing about AR is that he's still only 23 years old. He was drafted in 2023, so he's still very young. But again, time is ticking for him. This has to be the year where it's all right, you look at his numbers from past years. He had 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions last year. and threw for a little under 2,000 yards. Like, it's got to be better this year if you're talking about franchise quarterback.
Then, of course, the Browns quarterback room is always entertaining. I'm going to bet Flacco's your early season starter. I think you and I talked about this the other day. If I'm setting the line of how many Browns quarterbacks we see this year, if it was like 2.5, you going over or under?
I'm going to go over. I do think, Joe Flacco has been a nice, veteran presence for that team, and I think he's going to be the starter right out of the gate. As long as he stays healthy, he should have that job. But if he struggles or gets hurt, you have Kenny Pickett right behind him. But Kenny Pickett has not really lived up to much hype. So I think we're definitely going to see over 2.5 quarterbacks playing this year for the Browns.
See, I'll go right at 2. I think Flacco will be fine. At some point, you're going to want to turn it over to maybe a Shedeur Sanders. And if you really think he's your future, if you really think he's your next franchise quarterback, good or bad, ride with him. Just let him go out there and learn. Like, again, he's got to grow. He's got to develop. And I feel like going back and forth is only going to hurt his confidence. So if you're going to turn it over to Shedeur at some point this year, just let him ride it out. That's my opinion, at least.
Don't forget, though, they have Dylan Gabriel as well. They drafted 2 quarterbacks this year for some reason. So, I think you gotta let both of those guys play a lot. We're gonna see it during the preseason here, seeing which one can end up being the third string or maybe even the second string on the depth chart. Kenny Pickett's not too good.
It's gonna be entertaining for sure. Jack, enjoy your trip, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, man.
That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, it's the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Myself and Wes Mitchell on your Thursday on the Game. It's 10 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you here on The Game. Wes, I know you're especially excited today because we are 30 days away from week 0. I see that smile on your face. You're amped, right?
Well, I'm also smiling that we got JD.
Well,
on with
yes,
us
we
as
also
well.
we
So
also have
we got
JD
a lot of good
Piquel,
things going on, Tyler.
But JD, as I bring you in here, JD Piquel of On 3, you got to know something about Wes. He loves week 0 more than anybody else in the entire world. He loves it with every ounce of his being. Are you a week 0 lover or week 0 denier?
Oh, absolutely, week 0 lover. I mean, the fact that Wes loves week 0 just only grows my affection for that human being. I mean, we've been wandering through the wilderness here, fellas. We've been talking about the transfer portal. I mean, we got excited about spring football, which I'm a spring football truther as well. But now that we have games that actually count, like, I don't care that it's in Ireland. I don't care that it's Fresno State, Kansas, and Tarleton State. And like, we got football being played. I am all the way here for it. Wes, my brother from another mother, week 0 all the way.
Listen, I hate to burst your bubble so quickly here, but
Tyler has set me up.
I was setting you up because Wes absolutely despises week 0, and he will not acknowledge it. So we're trying to convert him.
No, Wes.
It's true. It's true. It's true. I'm a week 1 is real football. I'm a hey man, if I'm going to the steakhouse, don't feed me chicken nuggets for the appetizer. Like I get so excited about the big games in week 1. I'm like it feels like such a tease in week 0.
Are you denying you can't get good chicken nuggets at a steakhouse though?
I mean, maybe some of them you can. I don't know, guys.
If I may interject, have you all ever been to Texas Roadhouse?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the honey, cinnamon, butter, whatever kind of crack cocaine they put in that butter, and then you put it on the rolls. That is, I would say, as much of an attraction as whatever steak you're getting. Maybe that's specific to that establishment, but I would just say, like, yes, I 100% agree. I prefer a steak every time. But if I can get some of those honey cinnamon rolls to hold me over, like we're cooking, all right? We're in good shape.
Is that a new sponsor of yours, JD?
No, I mean, not yet.
The way you sold it, though. I mean,
let's make it happen.
Sounds like they could just pay you in those rolls and honey butter, and you'd be fine with that, right?
I mean, if someone's listening that has a connection, let's do this.
We'll try and workshop that as we continue to try and convert Wes over to week 0. But JD, how's it going, man? I saw you around at Media Days again, a chance to introduce myself, but you were here, there, and everywhere as most of us were last week in Atlanta.
No, it was. So I guess I'm a week 0 truther. I'm also a Media Days truther, to be honest with you. It was just it was kind of a boring Media Days from a news perspective, outside of Greg McElroy talking about Saban potentially coming back that first day, and then it kind of fizzled from there. It just feels like once we get to Media Days, we are unofficially across the finish line. You know, like football's not being played. It's not week 1, but it's more responsible to actually, talk about the season. So it was a good time, man. I was glad that we got to be out there and just ready for the season to get rolling here.
JD, I know you spent some time with Lenora Sellers. You've been a Lenora Sellers truther for quite a while as well. How was your experience? Just, it's different spending a little bit of time with somebody in person versus seeing them on TV. What were maybe your takeaways from spending some time with Lenoris?
Yeah, I think there was 2 takeaways for me. The first, massive hands. Massive. Like, I'm over here holding the microphone, and y'all have seen that Burger King commercial where the guy's got, like, extra small hands. He's self-conscious about it because the burger's so big. That was kind of how I felt, like, being next to Lenora Sellers, my baby hands, and he's holding the microphone like it's like a prop or like a little kid's play microphone. That was the first thing that stuck out to me. Second thing is I think I was very much so prepared for him to be, like, massively introverted, like to the point where we got to get 10 questions ready for a 4-minute interview because he might just give us only one-word answers. But that wasn't the case. I thought he was very face of the franchise-esque when it came to how he carried himself. I thought he was very articulate and gave great answers. And I don't know if that's how it was when he first got to South Carolina, but for him to kind of step into that role, which I know you and I have talked about a little bit, Wes, over our conversations during spring ball and kind of his next step in leadership, I was impressed by that. So nothing but good things to say about the guy, and excited to watch him ball.
Yeah, I think that tracks, man. Definitely when he got here and was behind Spencer Rattler, and he definitely was more of a lead by example guy, and maybe still is to an extent. I think that's something, like we've talked about, he has worked on. He has made a concerted effort to try and bring along that part of his game, and he kind of understands, hey, that's maybe part of the next step for me. But he does have a great personality. He's just one of those guys that doesn't necessarily show it to everybody. And, I think that's one thing with just being more and more comfortable in his skin. Like, I mean, dude, JD, you see it on a national perspective, man. Like, it's got to, even though people probably warned him, the amount of attention that he is getting now, not just around here, but on a national level, compared to this time last year when, I mean, there were lists that had him as like, this is the 15th or 16th best quarterback in the SEC because we just don't know yet. And now to be talked about the way he is, like, that's got to be a massive just jump in everything about your daily life, just even going out to dinner or something.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's been able to have a full offseason to get used to it, like, I wonder if LaNorris Sellers pops the way that he did in November, in the month of September, like, he's probably trying to acclimate to all of that during the season, during game week, handling all of just the wild noise. He obviously got better as the season progressed, but I wonder a little bit if having his best games at the end of the year with, obviously the Missouri game was huge, but the A&M game that everyone saw, the game in Clemson everyone saw, where it felt like, to me at least, he really stepped into like that national spotlight. I wonder if that didn't happen at the perfect time for him to where become a national name, season ends, have a full off season of like, okay, let me figure out how to handle all of this. Not that he wouldn't have handled it well during the season, but it's a lot easier to handle it when you're not trying to digest the defense and a game plan and all the madness that comes with the game week.
Yeah, and talking to JD Pickell of On 3 here on the Garnet Trust Hour, brought to you by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Of course, Sellers is the focal point of this offense, and there are some questions around him, particularly when it comes to the running back room, as we're still waiting on the Rasul Faison eligibility ruling to hopefully come soon. We keep hearing maybe soon, maybe soon, maybe soon. We still got nothing yet. And next week, as South Carolina enters into fall camp, that's where things get really interesting in terms of how you go about splitting up your reps, who's going to work with ones, who's going to work with twos, and all that kind of stuff. Being a former running back yourself at the college level, I mean, what's that going to look like where you have a guy that you hope is going to be able to play, but you also have to go through the month of exploring the possibility that he might not, and adjusting your practice and guys getting reps accordingly?
Yeah, I think we could all attest to this. Like, you try and keep things as status quo as possible. Now, maybe you're not giving Faison as many reps as he would have gotten if we know without a shadow of a doubt that he's going to be your guy week one. But I think at the same time, like, we all know this, in the SEC, you got to have at least 2, maybe 3 backs to go wire to wire, right? So, I mean, I think that regardless, you're divvying up the reps pretty widely across that room. Now, make no mistake, it's a very different feel on that offense week one if you have Faison available versus if you don't. But I think when it comes to how you start fall camp, there shouldn't be any massive change to how you approach things when giving up reps. I mean, I think once you get to game week anyway, that's when you really start to, at least in my experience, like hammer out, okay, here's the depth, here's how this game plan is going to look, here's how we want to utilize this back versus that back. So let everybody eat, let everybody get reps, and then as you move closer to the season, hopefully get some clarity on that ruling, you can go from there.
JD, did you talk to Beamer at Media Day too?
I did. Yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal, as y'all could attest to.
Any takeaways there, and are you still working on getting a spot on the team?
Been working on it for a while, man. And, I think maybe I could get a celeb shot on kickoff, but it's one of those things, Wes, too, like as the years go by here, I don't know that my utility is going up in terms of what I can bring to the table, so that's one part of, this whole equation. But in terms of talking to Coach, man, like, I think the way I would distill it down, if it were to be like a one-word definition, is just like maybe confidence. And confidence kind of feels like too simplistic of a way to put it, but you could tell that what they did at the end of last year and how they were being talked about this time a year ago with, is South Carolina going to be a team that makes a bowl game? Hey, a bowl game will be good for them. And then at the end of the year, we're talking about, hey, South Carolina maybe deserves a spot in the college football playoff. it felt like he was almost, I don't want to say detached, but maybe a little bit more numb to the hype that people were going to give to South Carolina. Because he said it during our conversation. He's like, last year people were picking us, bottom to middle of the conference, and right now y'all are picking us a lot higher. So, we understand what we have in front of us. We understand what last year was, and we understand that, we still haven't accomplished our goals. I did think it was interesting listening to other conversations that he had across media days. I'm not sure if it was on Feinbaum or what show it was, but someone essentially questioned, is winning the SEC like an attainable goal? And he cut it loose on that individual. And I appreciated that, and I thought that was just telling as to the perspective internally, how they're approaching this season. Like, it's not just let's get back and compete for a playoff spot. It's like, no, let's go get ourselves a chance to have a bye and go finish the job that was left unfinished a year ago.
I believe that was on the Feinbaum show where he went on that little rant there last week out at Media Days. I don't know if you thought this far ahead when he was hired back here at the end of the 2020 season, but is this about where you expected South Carolina to be, 4 years in, going into your number 5 under Shane Beaver? Did you have an idea of what that might look like and where it is now?
I would love to sit here and tell you that I did, but honestly, I didn't. I think a lot of this, too, to be 100% honest, is the way that college football has changed, too. Like, I think when he got hired, we were still talking about what's the playoff going to look like, it's a 4-team model and all that. And, it's pretty straightforward for all of us. Like, going to 12 teams helped the South Carolinas of the world that right now, at least, aren't recruiting with the Georgias and the Bamas and the Texases, but you've got a freak show at quarterback and potentially a good enough roster to where if you have things break the right way and your quarterback, that Superman, stays Superman, you can find a way to dance. So that's a long-winded way to say had no idea that they would be in this position when he got hired. But I would say he's just an easy person to root for, so you kind of always hoped he would be in this position with that job that he's done there and when he took over that job. So no, had no gauge for that, but I'm very, very excited to see what they do this upcoming season.
He is J.D. PicKell of On Through. We'll have more conversation with him coming up next as we take a look around the SEC as well as the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating rolls on your Thursday here on The Game.
All right, guys, taking care of your roof if you own a home or business, it can be difficult, but our friends at Classic Roofing are here to make it very, very simple for you. 803-590-7870 or classicroofingsc.com for more information about all their great services. Now, if you go to that website, look at the top right-hand corner of your screen. There's a free estimate button. You may be saying, why do I need a free estimate? I don't have any roof issues right now. Well, what Classic Roofing is going to do once you set up that free estimate, they're going to come out and they're going to give you a complete and total assessment of that roof. They're going to let you know, are there any problem areas right now that need to be taken care of? They're going to let you know, are there any issues that maybe were going to become bigger problems at a later date? And perhaps most importantly, they're going to let you know how much life you have left on that roof so you can go ahead and plan for the future. If you own a home, you own a business, they're going to help you with every single step of that at 803-590-7870.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Grant's Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. Continuing our conversation with J.D. Piquel of On3. J.D., is, first of all, appreciate you hanging through the break there. A lot of storylines going on in the SEC this upcoming season, and we talked about South Carolina in that last segment there, and you noted how impressed you were with the sheer size of Lenore Sellers. Somebody else you noted you were impressed with was seeing DJ Lagway in person, and I can attest to that, seeing him walking around at Media Days last week. One of my big takeaways from Media Days last week was kind of feeling a lot of hype for Florida, feeling like they really could go out there and surprise a lot of people this upcoming season. You got Jaden Ball coming back, a lot of returns to the offensive line. Defense looked really good down the stretch a year ago. Am I off base, or do you think Florida could really surprise some people this year?
Well, first I want to address the break. This is our middle eight here. All right, so we gotta make sure we're dialed in and we can come out of the half here strong. So I'm fired up, and I like that we're going with Florida here. The conversation around Florida is so interesting. I don't think you're off base at all, to answer your question directly. I think the funny part about Florida is nobody is out on the roster that I've talked to. Nobody's out on DJ Lagway. I mean, I think the affection for Billy Napier across college football is beginning to grow and was crescendoing last year with how they finished the season. But but the schedule is the equivalent of the Squid Games. Like it's just a brutal schedule. And so I think that for Florida, they could be a team that wins 8 games and is deserving of a top 20, top 15 spot in the final rankings. But I have a hard time getting on board with anyone who's saying, hey, they're a 10-win team, they're going to make the playoff. And that's coming from someone who is pro DJ Lagway, pro roster. I love the returning production and all those things. It's really hard for me to get on the train of, hey, they're going to be a playoff team the more I look at the schedule. The thing I will say is if they do make the playoff, and I end up being wrong, which I won't lie to y'all, has happened before. It has happened in my media career. I picked a team to finish worse than they have finished in the end of the season. I love the returning production, yes, because of what it means for guys you can trust coming back. But I think what gets missed so often with Florida is the fact that Billy Napier never let that thing blow up. There was multiple points throughout his time in Gainesville where post A&M game last year we're all like, well, he's probably fired. That's probably going to be the end of his time in Gainesville. Is it Drinkwitz? Is it Kiffin who gets the job next in Florida? It was like, it was like before September had even wrapped up. And not only kept his roster intact going into last season, but kept his team engaged throughout the rest of what last year was and allowed them to finish how they finished. So I would love to see Florida be a 9-10 win team. I got them at 8 as it stands right now.
So, JD, all right, we've just learned no playoff for Florida. I'm looking through your X feed right now. I see that we have A&M going to the playoff.
Got them there.
Who else, and I know you're probably going to roll these out, so you don't have to give it all away, but who else do you think from the SEC is going to the playoff in your projections? Like, what can you give us on that?
No, absolutely. So right now I have Texas A&M, Texas. I have Georgia from the SEC. I have who else do I have here? I'm drawing a blank. Texas A&M, Georgia. I have Alabama. I'm on the fence of taking into account there for the playoff. There's a couple of teams here that I'm close but not 100% sure I'm ready to pull the trigger. I'm totally whipping here. I have LSU as well. So those are my 4 locks. I'm on the fence of going with a 5th SEC team, and I have been as high on South Carolina as I think anybody else that I've talked to. I am struggling. I'm like, you get to the high dive and you're like 1 foot off the ledge and you're not sure if you can jump. That's kind of where I'm at in South Carolina. And I want to do it. I really do. I want them to make the playoff. I want Sellers to be everything that he's advertised to be. I have a hard time getting on board with the idea that defense will be as ferocious as it was last year. Mm-hmm. So for me, I have 4 SEC teams right now. I'm debating on doing that 5th team being Alabama. I think they could be a team that wins 10 and finds their way in. I have no idea what to make of that quarterback position. So to give you an organized thought here, LSU, Texas A&M, Georgia are my locks right now. and then I'm debating on putting a fifth one in there versus maybe a fourth Big Ten team.
So you mentioned LSU there, and they got a huge Week 1 matchup against Clemson. They haven't won a Week 1 game and since 2019, the year they won the national championship. And, of course, in today's world of college football, you can lose multiple games in the regular season and still be in good shape to make the playoffs. But for the psyche of the fan base alone, how important and vital is it that LSU goes into Clemson and wins that Week 1 game?
Oh, I think it's huge. I mean, we talk about, what Brian Kelly did last year when they lost to USC, slamming the table. He may flying elbow WWE just break that table post Clemson if they lose that game. I think even just for the internal psyche as well. I think there's so much talk. And this is one thing that I thought was kind of jarring about media days is LSU. The standard there with that logo and the previous head coaches is going to a national championship. But a team that wasn't in the playoff last year is very, very outwardly expressing no, we expect to go win the national championship this year. It is about winning a national title this year. And you're like, okay, I like that energy, I like that swag, I like that vibe. But it hasn't necessarily happened in a minute for y'all. So I think to win that first game against a team like Clemson, a team that brings back the most production in college football, who I think will be a lot of people's trendy pick to win it all, I think that would do a lot for that locker room and just kind of building that confidence and validating everything they've talked about this offseason about this kind of being the year. So for the fan base, absolutely. Baton Rouge may cease to exist if they drop another opener. But for that locker room, I think it would go a long way with their ultimate goals as well.
Let's go outside the SEC real quick here, JD. Is there a team you believe in that you feel like your national colleagues maybe don't quite believe in as much right now? Who are you just feeling the vibes on right now?
Yeah, as it pertains to making the playoff.
Making the playoff, or just maybe even being in that conversation, or maybe there's not a team. Is there on the other side? Is there a team that is getting too much hype right now?
I really like Penn State. It's kind of like pineapple on pizza. I'm here for it. If that's what you want to order and that's your deal, great. But I'm seeing them as some people's preseason number one, and I'm seeing them picked to win the Big Ten. And I'm like, hang on a second. Is Tyler Warren back for another year? Is Abdul Carter back for another year? I love that you got Jim Knowles. That's phenomenal. But have we seen a game where Drew Aller just says, "Get on my back. I'm about to go win a big one against Ohio State or against Oregon or against I haven't seen that yet." And so I don't want to be the guy where it's I have to see it to believe it. But I'm a little bit I have to see more from Penn State before I just crown them over these teams that have recruited better than them every single year in Oregon and in Ohio State. And heck, honestly, I like Michigan a lot this year too, to answer the other part of the question that you were asking of who am I maybe a touch higher on than some folks across the country. You look at Michigan's schedule, there's 4 true road games. Or not 4 true road games, but they have a bunch of their Nebraska has 4 true road games. I'm getting them mixed up. Michigan has a lot of games early on in the season that if they get through the month of September, October is pretty manageable. If they can just get to November with 1 to 2 losses, I think Michigan fans would take that every single day and say, okay, we play Ohio State the last week of the season. We beat them every year. Yeah, sign us up for that. They won so many games last year with a JV quarterback kind of play. Not to knock Davis Warner or Alex Orji, but you beat Ohio State and Alabama throwing for less than 100 yards. And you're telling me you got a freak show in Bryce Underwood, who is, I'll say this, probably the best freshman quarterback they ever had in Ann Arbor. There should be cause for excitement. So I think they could be a team that, and I'd go back to that conversation of 5 SEC teams versus a 4th Big Ten team. And I'm tempted to go with the Michigan getting in at 10-2 versus Alabama if they find their way to 10-2. So not 100% sure what I'm doing yet there, but not as high on Penn State as everyone else. And I think higher on Michigan than most folks.
So you've mentioned you're drinking the Lenora Sellers Kool-Aid. We'll add in Marcel Reed, Bryce Underwood. Any other flavors of Kool-Aid that you're sipping on this year?
Yeah, I like the Jade Mayava Kool-Aid too. I'm not probably consuming as much. I'm not buying it in bulk, but if it's at the gas station and it's cold, I was impressed by how he finished the year. I know there were some picks, but I think it's worth noting the way he responded to those interceptions. He throws a couple. He has a bad half against A&M. Gives it away a couple times. They're down by a couple scores, and he comes back out in the second half just firing. And for a young quarterback to have that ability to shake it off, much like a Marcel Reed, I was really, really impressed by that from Mayava at the end of the year. And also, he's a guy that was handpicked by Lincoln Riley out of the portal. Like Miller Moss, God bless him, that wasn't his story arc with getting to USC. He was already there when Lincoln Riley got there. So I think that's worth noting, and I think that is maybe a little bit slept on when it comes to what USC is going to be this year.
JD, 60 seconds to a hard break here, man. What's your Gamecock record? Got one? You got the prediction?
I got the Gamecocks at 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the Gamecocks at 9-3. Actually, we're doing their full game-by-game prediction today on the YouTube channel. But I got 9-3 with losses to Alabama, A&M, and to Clemson.
Okay. Interesting.
There you have it.
Very fair. Look forward to seeing that a little bit later on today. JD, appreciate your time as always, and we'll certainly have you on down the line too.
Thanks again, y'all. Appreciate it.
He is JD Kell of On3. This is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Take a look at some comments made by Colin Cowherd in terms of the Big Ten and the money that they generate and what that means for success on the field. That's coming up next. It is Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating here on the game.
All right, guys, like I've been telling you, football right around the corner. You still do have time to upgrade the man cave by hitting up our friends at Integrated Media, integratedmediainc.com, so you can get more information about all their services. That could be, like I said, going all in on the man cave, the home theater system. You could go TV, you could go projectors, you could go surround sound. The beauty of it is with Integrated Media, if you call them up and you express your kind of dream setup to them, they're going to take it, make it a reality for you. For me, it was as simple as setting up Ethernet so I had hardline internet throughout the house. But for you, it may be something even greater or something in between. Just, hey, I need you to hang a TV. I want to hide the wires in the living room. I want to put more speakers in the living room. If any of that sounds intriguing to you, hit up our friends at Integrated Media by heading on over to integratedmediainc.com. And again, you got time, but you don't have that much time. Hit them up before football season.
Welcome back in. It is the Guarded Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler and Wes with you on your Thursday here on the game. Again, appreciate J.D. Piquel for hanging out with us for those first couple segments. Has he swayed your Week 0 opinion at all? Still denying?
Still denying, but I do agree with JD on a lot of things. So
okay,
you know what? No,
no,
one call is not going to change my mind.
Okay,
all right. Here's the thing, Tyler.
Okay,
if they give me one good game on paper, not it's a close game. I'm talking about one game that piques my interest.
All right,
in Week 0.
So
then I will change my tune.
All right, so if Ohio State and Texas was Week 0,
yes,
instead
if
of Week 1.
they were like, hey, we're going to give you a marquee matchup on Week 0, I'm in.
Okay.
I feel like as an adult, you get very few moments anymore that feel like the first day of summer break from school, that feel like waking up on Christmas Day.
Sure.
That just give you that energy. Like, you, as a kid, that was everything.
Yeah.
You don't really get that many opportunities to have those feelings, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when I wake up on that first Saturday of Week 1, I still have that feeling. I don't really want to mute it, or I don't want to ease into that feeling. It'd be like if Thanksgiving was a couple of days before Christmas. Like,
okay,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get where you're coming from.
I want to wake up I want to wake up on that Saturday, hear the game day theme, and be like, we made it.
Okay. All right. That's fair. And this year, cry for 3 hours about Lee Corso.
Yeah.
And then move on to the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get where you're coming from.
If you gave me that matchup you're talking about, though, I mean, I'm all in, but we don't do that. It's just a filler.
We don't do that yet. You never know.
It's a filler week.
We'll see what happens. Speaking of college football, I heard something interesting from Colin Cowherd the other day in reference to this new era, revenue sharing, and he particularly was talking about a list that Pete Nakos of On3 put out recently of the top spending teams based on what he knows. And again, Pete Nakos very well connected when it comes to NIL and all that kind of stuff on what teams were spending on their respective rosters. And Colin Cowherd has crafted a theory about why he thinks the Big Ten will be successful going forward in this new era.
So last year, Ohio State lost to 2 Big Ten teams. They rolled 2 SEC teams. It's the eye test. I said this 3 years ago. Something's changing, and what's changing is money. Big Ten schools are bigger. They have more graduates. It's easier to raise money for NIL. You add in Phil Knight and the Nike money. You add in USC and the LA economy money. The Big Ten cities, LA, New York with Rutgers, Chicago Northwestern, Minneapolis, DC, Seattle. That's the Big Ten money is Hollywood, tech, and financial centers. It's a lot of car dealerships in the SEC. And car dealerships are running on razor-thin margins. So right now, the top spenders in college football, according to the On3 poll, 4 of the top 7 are Big Ten, and that's not changing. That is not changing.
For reference, the poll the survey that Pete Nakos put out recently had in order your top 10 of top spenders on this year's college football rosters: Texas, Texas Tech, Ohio State, Oregon, A&M, Miami, Southern Cal, Michigan, Tennessee, and Auburn. Again, a good mix of SEC and Big Ten mixed in there. I think Colin Cowherd is severely underrating where SEC money can come from. Notably, the Texas schools, quite literally, or Texas there at the top and Texas Tech second in the Big 12. Literally, you're talking about oil money there. Same thing with A&M at number 5. And look, I don't know if Alabama and Georgia at the very tip top when it comes to NIL and when it comes to money coming in, but they can find it if they need it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's going to suddenly become this giant gap in what Big Ten schools. Yeah, Ohio State had the most expensive roster in college football last year. It's well noted, but I don't think it's going to get to the point where the Big Ten just suddenly starts running away with it because they have Hollywood money, as he talks about.
Yeah, I think, well, and that was definitely delivered in a Colin Cowherd way. The little shot there about, there's a lot of car dealerships. Definitely some entertainment behind that as opposed, and the oversimplification, I think. to your point, lots of Texas oil money is being converted into NIL money, and I think we're seeing that play out in real time. I do think so. So the SEC has run things for so long that we do tend to think, especially sitting here in SEC country, it's always going to be that way.
Sure.
I think there is a little bit of truth to his thought that the Big Ten, this latest push from the Big Ten of winning a couple of national titles, I don't think that's just a blip. Like, I think it's easy to sit there here in SEC country and be like, oh, wow, the Big Ten finally won one. They finally won another. You know, the SEC is going to get right back to winning 9 of 10 or whatever it is. I think that's putting your head in the sand a little bit. Like, I think the Big Ten is legitimate. Like, I think I would dare say the SEC is not the clear best conference by a huge, wide margin like we have seen for the last decade. Now, is the SEC going to go away? Is the Big Ten going to now, is it going to reverse and the Big Ten runs away with it? I don't think that's the case whatsoever either. Like, and the thing about SEC money is that SEC people will give their bottom dollar to help their team win. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
There may not be as many billionaires, but people are. I would say, so. Who in LA is saying Southern Cal football is my priority with my money? Like, there may be more money to pull from in that. Like, is the LA economy supporting? I mean, they can't even sell out their football stadium.
Right.
So I think, again, I think there was some truth in what he said, but I think it's a complete oversimplification. Like, fill up your stadium before you're going to make me believe that that's a huge NIL advantage for you.
Well, one thought I had coming away from this is, money isn't everything at the end of the day. And I don't think we're ever going to get to a point in college football where the price of your roster outweighs good coaching. Can you have seasons where an okay to average coach can have a national championship? Sure. We saw that with Ed Orgeron and LSU a couple of years ago. He was a good coach that happened to have one of the most talented rosters in all of college football, and they ran roughshod over everyone. But to put together consecutive years like that, I don't think it's going to be quite as easy. So I do think the Kirby Smarts, the Ryan Days, the Dabo Sweeneys are all going to continue to have good success, not because their rosters are the most expensive, but because they're really good at developing the talent they do have. And that is what will keep you towards the top of the sport, not just the money. The money helps, certainly, but I think good coaching is something that can never truly be outweighed.
Yeah. Now, the best roster money could buy did win it last year.
It did, but
they also lost 2 games in the regular season.
They did, but I think Ryan Day is a really good coach at the same time, too. So both things can be true at the same time.
That is true. And I think maybe we'll carry this over to the next segment here, because I think there's more to it. I actually wrote a little bit, not specifically about that, but I wrote last night about the fact that even as much as NIL and transfer portal makes us think this is going away, evaluation and development still matter.
Yes.
And there was a thought process that maybe they don't matter at all, or maybe they don't matter as much. I actually think, particularly if the revenue share era actually gets off the ground, like if these rules are able to stay in place, it could actually be more important than ever to evaluate, which I think is something we could explore.
We'll hit that on the other side as we wrap up today's edition of the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Crane Cooling and Heating, Tyler and Wes, on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. Garnet Trust Hour brought to you by Krantz Cooley. I'm still getting used to the new name. So
The old name.
New old name. Yeah, I know. I'll probably trip on it again. It's okay. Reminder, by the way, today, post-game show with Jay and Terry live from the Nest at 1331 Gatton Street from 3 until 6. Go hang out with those guys and see some of the great appliances that the Nest has to offer. We're continuing this conversation that spills over from last segment, sparked by what Colin Cowherd had to say in reference to what he believes the Big Ten money is with Hollywood and major cities and all that kind of stuff throughout the the Midwest and the North there, that he believes will be the catalyst for why the Big Ten will continue to be the best conference in college football. And Wes, you kind of said that there is a small grain of truth to that for where his idea was coming from, but maybe his thought process wasn't exactly played out in the right way there. And it got us into talking about the value of coaching and the value of developing talent. And I think for a period of time, there was a belief in some people that, developing high school talent wasn't quite at the same value as it once was. Obviously, the transfer portal allows you to go out there and get anything you want or need at any time, to where some schools like Colorado have made it a thing of just kind of flipping their roster every single year and going out there and getting whatever talent they can at respective areas of need. But I think there's no better example, perhaps this year, than Clemson right up the road as what developing high school talent can do. Again, they have been very anti-portal up until recently, and Dabo did take a couple guys in, but most of that roster is homegrown. Most of that roster is guys he recruited out of high school that have hung around for a couple years. It's very much an old school way of building what could potentially be a championship level team in Clemson. Now, what happens after this year is questionable, because you're going to lose a lot of that talent to the NFL and eligibility and all that kind of stuff. But for the past handful of years, as we were all ridiculing Dabo for, not adapting with the times, he has built one of the strongest rosters in college football for this upcoming season.
Well, yeah, you're going to make our listeners gag on this Clemson Love Fest. But
I'm just calling it as I see it. It's a strong team.
It is, and I'll say this too, man. So Colin Cowherd's argument also is based on the thing about numbers is that depending on, you can be very selective with the sample size you use on things. So he said, what did he say? 4 of the top 7 spenders, according to this poll, are in the Big Ten.
Yep.
Well, the top spender, according to this poll, is in the SEC. And you could be like, well, 2 of the top 4 are in the Big Ten. Okay, well, 2 of the top 5 are in the SEC. 4 of the top 10 are in the SEC. If you expand it out after the 10 in the receiving votes category, you have LSU, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama. So of the next 5, they're all in the SEC. So you go from 4 of 7 for the Big Ten to like 9 of the top 15 are in the SEC. So I think it's a little bit misrepresenting what this poll even says, I think, in terms of the various schools and what they're spending. But in terms of evaluation, man, so if rev share, and so the NIL, the latest guidance that is coming out now, it doesn't say the collectives can still just spend whatever they want.
Sure.
They still have to have their deals approved by NIL Go. So what does that mean for evaluation? That means you can't just outspend your problems. If anything, if you have a finite cap, even if it's a little bit of a soft cap that you're working towards, then you have to be very smart with where you put your money. And so I'm looking at evaluation and development from a roster building standpoint. Deciding which prospect, and we don't even have to use code words anymore because this is direct. You're paying them from the school's coffers, basically, with revenue share. Which guy am I willing to commit the big money to out of high school or out of the portal? Which guy do I have a chance to land, but the other school, quote unquote, outbids me, and I say, you know what? We don't evaluate him to an extent to say that he's worth spending that percentage of our cap on a guy. The other side of this, and I think if you're South Carolina or Clemson, this is a huge factor. you're in a state that has traditionally had undervalued players that have bubbled up late in the process, that are in rural areas of the state, that just consistently, if you find the right guys who are under the radar, guess what? Those guys can't come in and say, hey, I need $800,000 to attend your school. They're traditional football players. They're the ones who, if they are successful, they are going to earn some money. They're going to earn some NIL. They're going to earn their share of rev share. But they cannot command the big money dollars out of high school. What does that do? That allows you to commit those dollars to keep a Lenoris Sellers, to keep a Cade Klubnik, to keep your top guys on campus, and fill out your roster with the evaluation and development guys. So I don't think eval is going away. If anything, if you can find those guys and have success with them, it is the college equivalent of the NFL team that finds a superstar quarterback or a superstar pass rusher in the 5th round, and they are able to have them on a rookie deal and then spend their money to fill out other needs.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, in this article that NACO's put out there, he did mention that a source praised South Carolina, saying they did the best job in the country when it comes to retaining talent, again, with Sellers and Stewart returning, and they were in that others receiving votes category, the potential teams that could have made this top 10 list. So they got one vote, but still, you at least be in the realm of being thought of as one of the better spenders in college football, or at least being very smart with your money. Is good praise to see, obviously. And again, you brought back your 2 most important pieces, and hopefully it's a catalyst for another good season.
Yeah, and I think important to remember too, if you miss out on a guy in the recruiting process, it's not always just you got outbid. Sometimes it is, hey, we weren't comfortable putting a higher percentage of our money into this one player.
Yep. I'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, guys, we've had some scorchers out there lately. Don't want to wish this into the world for anybody, but if you're having HVAC issues, go ahead, pick up the phone, call our friends at Krantz Cooling. Go online to get more information about their services, krantzcooling.com. That's Krantz with a K, Cooling with a K. Phone number 803-672-3224 if you are having issues, or you can schedule an appointment right there on the website. Also, according to that website, special offer right now, 0% APR for 60 months on qualifying equipment. You do need to present that coupon at time of service. You can call Krantz for complete details. And obviously, it's hot right now, but if you want to go ahead and work ahead, if you want to be prepared, call and ask about preventative maintenance for your units before we get into the fall and then, of course, your winter. But if you have issues with your HVAC, can't stress this enough. Your guys at Krantz, they're going to take great care of you. KrantzCooling.com.
11 o'clock, welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, Wes, and Chris along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Chris, I know you probably didn't hear our conversation last hour with J.D. Piquel of On 3, but we've at least potentially started turning Wes in the direction of Week 0. He's not sold on it yet.
Hold on.
He says he needs bigger matchups, but he's starting to entertain the idea of it more than he was before.
You're overplaying that.
You've given more love to it in the past hour than I've ever seen you before, saying you understand it, but you need a bigger matchup. So we see a pathway for Wes to become a Week 0 believer, Chris.
I will, Tyler, I have to ride with Wes a little bit here. You're right, I did not hear the conversation, but I can imagine you're taking a little bit of a stretch there. He's not a believer.
I didn't say he was a believer.
Open-minded.
I see a pathway to make him a believer.
Okay, pathway.
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know, man. What's the so Week 0 this year? I mean, we talked about this. It's not too alluring from what I'm seeing.
What is it? Is it Vandy and Hawaii again? Is it?
Well, August 23rd counts as Week 0, right,
yes,
Tyler?
Yes, it does.
You're our calendar man.
We are 30 days away from Week 0, which is why I bring it up.
Yeah, so we don't have. We're not counting the Thursday games, right? Which is also, by the way, not loaded. I mean, there's 5 Week 0 games, and I guess the best game is Iowa State at Kansas State in Ireland.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I'm more apt this year to jump on the Wes Mitchell bandwagon of not tuning into Week 0. I mean, I'll watch that a little bit. I mean, Idaho State, UNLV, Fresno State at Kansas, Sam Houston at Western Kentucky, and Stanford at Hawaii. I think I'm good.
I mean, tune in for all of them, guys. I'll
look at it.
I'm disappointed that Chris is trending towards being a denier now.
Yeah. Full denier. I don't know. That's just, you got to give me something a little bit better.
We haven't done a text in thing in a while, so I'm sure we did this last year, but
sure.
Tyler, do you want to?
Yeah.
You want to have everybody text in?
What's your thoughts on Week 0? Yes, no, excited?
You want to tell them how to do that and who sponsored it?
That's right. 803-404-6100 for the Firehouse Subs text line.
Firehouse Subs.
Yeah, let us know. Anyway, since we are talking about countdowns, 30 days until Week 0, 38 days until South Carolina squares off against Virginia Tech. In week number 1, of course, 38 days would be George Rogers days until kickoff, which is where today's trivia question is coming from. Are we ready to go for this one? We feel confident we're going to get this one. Have we studied our George Rogers history last night?
I don't really feel all that confident. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, not confident. I did do some studying, actually. Okay. But Tyler, you tend to find the ones that we haven't looked at. At least that I haven't looked at.
Tyler, you do a fantastic job of keeping us on our toes with this.
Thank you.
It's very impressive, just to be honest.
I tried to keep this one a little more simplified, so hopefully one of you will get it.
Oh, no.
Here's the question. In his 1980 Heisman Trophy season, what game did George Rogers rush for the most yards in?
You think we...
What? He thought this one was easier.
I feel like if you just do a little surface level digging here, you can find this pretty easily. Or
we can't find it now.
I felt like coming up as Gamecock fans and eventual alumni, you would have heard about this at some point.
Whew. Chris, do you have any ideas over there, my friend?
I mean, it was the 1980 season.
Yep.
Of course. And I studied a lot of things, but I didn't go game by game there, Tyler. I honestly have absolutely no idea. And yeah, the old timers who were, I mean, first of all, you do have to remember, Wes and I, we are getting up there a little bit. We were not born when this happened.
We were -6.
I understand this. I understand this.
Now, should we still know it? Maybe, possibly, but I don't. Let me I'm just going to throw out the Clemson game just for fun. I don't think that's it. I have no idea.
Wes, you got a guess?
It's wrong, but just because it would be funny, I don't think you picked this. I'm going to say Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be funny.
I feel like I feel like I remember seeing on the King George documentary, the Herschel Walker. This would have been Herschel versus George in
1980.
In 80.
Yep.
Yeah, it would.
And I feel like I think George fumbled in that game is what they highlighted on the documentary. But anyway, yeah, George or whatever.
Okay. Neither one of those answers are correct.
Is it an SEC school?
It is not. It is an ACC
Or
school.
now SEC school?
It is an ACC opponent. Of course, South Carolina was still independent at that point in time.
North Carolina.
Not North Carolina. You're in the right state, though.
Oh, okay.
It's either NC State or Duke, then. They would always play those back then.
It would be Duke. He ran for 224 yards against Duke, which is the highest total for him over the course of that season, though not the highest total for him in a single game in his Carolina career. Ran for 237 yards against Wake Forest back in 1978. Out of all the top 10 of single-game rushing records at South Carolina, George Rogers holds 3 individual records.
Good Lord. You want to know what the craziest thing I came across? Chris, I'll give you a shot at a point here. This would tie me if he gets it, I think.
Okay. Very generous.
George Rogers rushed for 100 yards in how many straight games to finish his career?
22.
Oh, he's looking at the Wikipedia. He looked at it.
Nope. No, but I didn't. I looked at it I looked at it this morning. I'm not currently looking at it, but that was one of the answers I memorized in hopes that Tyler would ask it, and he didn't.
Do you know how many?
You did.
Do you know how many total he had?
27.
Yes, but 22 straight.
To finish his career. That's a wild number. That's very hard to do.
Also, I didn't realize until reading this yesterday, his jersey was retired at his final game. His jersey was being retired while he was still here, still playing.
Yeah, that's like, you're so good. We're not waiting. We're not waiting, 20 years to retire. Let's just go ahead and knock this out.
And he was so good, I'm sure nobody even batted an eye at that being something you just don't do.
I mean, in today's world of college football, is there anybody in the past 20 years that could have done something like that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe like Cam's final game at Auburn or something.
Shedeur Sanders, clearly.
Well, yeah, Shedeur. God, he went 13-12 and won the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, he almost won the Alamo Bowl. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was funny.
I mean, you could have made a case. Well, part of Cam's is that he won the national title.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, now, you could make a case for, hey, we're going to retire Cam's jersey at the parade for the national title. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
Like, to truly do it at the end of their career, I mean, maybe Tebow?
Maybe, yeah.
You got anybody, Chris?
Yeah.
I mean, because Cam was just the one season. So I think he had to go win. As amazing as he was, he had to tack on the national championship to finish it off, in 2010 for it to truly have been that situation. And obviously, you couldn't have done it the final regular season game in that case.
Yeah, I mean, that is the guy that kind of comes to mind. Like, national title game, you're just like, all right, let's just go ahead. We'll just do this, knock this thing out at midfield, right? I mean, because his highlight tape surfaced again on Twitter from that one season. And, unfortunately, South Carolina was on the receiving end of some of those plays twice. And, he was just so good. I mean, he's like the closest thing we've seen to a Superman, I mean, it was just that team. What'd they have? One guy that played in the NFL aside from Cam?
Yep.
They're just phenomenal.
One of their offensive linemen, I think, had one start in the NFL. But, yeah, he took a bunch of essentially nobodies to a national championship, which is why I contend that's the greatest single season of any college football player ever. And I'm going to be hard-pressed to move on from that. But, yeah, having your jersey retired in your final home game was insane. But, again, speaks to how legendary of a career George Rogers had. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this now 2 days ago, but South Carolina is now going to feature the larger Block C and Gamecock on the regular helmet after wearing them on the throwbacks last year.
Well, didn't they have them on the regular helmet last year too?
No, it went back and forth. So in the throwback game, the one against Akron, they had the bigger one, but then they switched back. At least it wasn't every single game they had.
There was a bigger logo on the white helmet, not the throwback.
At least it wasn't for the entire season.
Yeah, but now it's
it's the featured thing.
Yeah, it looked good.
It looks great. I mean, I'm all for bigger logos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it looked great.
So I'm all for that. I thought the throwbacks were great in general. It's just a uniform. And last year, I thought block numbers looked good. Got the stars on the front. I mean, I wouldn't hate if they decided to make that the regular uniform again.
Well, and say what you want about Under Armour. I know there are some strong opinions about Under Armour. The throwbacks, I think, have all been good. Like the when they introduced the black throwback. I mean, it's actually been around a while now. I think that was like Ryan Helinski's season, I think, when they busted that thing out for the first time. But it looked great. The throwbacks last year looked great. I know people are divided. I even really like the white throwback helmet with the old school C.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people maybe don't like that one. I thought that one was nice, too.
I don't think they've won that one since they lost to North Carolina, right?
I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So maybe bad luck for that one, but yeah, good to see the big Block C and Gamecock logo get featured on this year's helmet, and again, hopefully they roll out those throwbacks at some point this year as well. Continuing on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, Matt Rule said something interesting yesterday at Big Ten Media Days pertaining to the Nebraska job, but I want to tie this into the perception of South Carolina, especially when Coach Beamer took over a couple years ago. That's coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Media Days rolling along here for the ACC and the Big Ten. Big Ten out in Las Vegas, funny enough, and ACC right up the road there in Charlotte. So much like last week with the SEC, we're hearing from coaches getting asked about their programs as well as other things happening around the world of college football. And it was at Big 12 Media Days a few weeks back that Scott Frost, was asked about what happened at Nebraska, and he said that in some form of words that taking that job was a mistake, that he shouldn't have gone there, and he's obviously back at Central Florida now for his second stint with the Golden Knights. Matt Rule yesterday at Big 10 Media Days was asked about Scott Frost's comments and actually came to Frost's defense, saying essentially that at the time, Nebraska was just simply not a good job.
First of all, I have a ton of respect for Scott, and I've always been very empathetic for what he went through because, this was his home. If you guys fire me tomorrow, I'm just going to go back to Cape May and sit on the beach and go back to where I'm from. But, this was his home, right? And so, this offseason, we put up a huge picture of Scott as a player in the coach's area because I took a picture and I sent it to Ryan Callahan down there because I can't imagine, what that feels like for him, right? I know what it felt like to get run out of Carolina. And I would say to people, I don't think I took the right job for me. It wasn't the right fit. Scott came at a time, he had COVID, he had all these different things. So I can't talk about his time. But what I can say was, this wasn't a good job. Yeah, it was not a good job. But we've made it a good job, and we're about to make it a great job. This will be one of the best jobs in the country. You walk in, and everyone's like, well, that was Scott's fault. And Carolina said that was Matt's fault. But, good programs, it's everybody. I just want to make sure I always say, everyone can point and say what went wrong. It takes everybody saying, hey, what's my area?
So, obviously, Matt Rule is still in the process of trying to build Nebraska back up to what they once were, but he's got him in a decent place as of right now. We'll see what year two with Dylan Raiola at quarterback is going to warrant for them. But I hear that, and I think back to when Beamer was hired here. And I asked Preston about this yesterday, and I wanted you to get your thoughts and opinions on what the state of the South Carolina program was in 2020 when Muschamp gets fired and they go out and hire Beamer in December, because from what Preston told me, what I've heard from a lot of people, including you guys, over my time here, is it was in a very, very dark place to where I don't know if a lot of people would have said, hey, that's a really good job that Beamer's going into. It may have been something that people said, I don't know if he can go in there and turn that thing around, which thankfully he obviously has. But from y'all's perspective, where would you assess where the Carolina job was in 2020 when Beamer took over?
Well, I think first and foremost, it was a 2-win team, which in some ways kind of speaks for itself. I know that obviously there's some luck involved, injuries, all that in a given season. But when you're 2-8 and you just can't stop anybody on defense, there's a certain that perception kind of precedes anything else about your program. So the perception was not just that South Carolina was a 2-win team. It was that they're getting blown out in a lot of these games and that they can't stop anybody. I think there was a sense going into that year that Muschamp was safe. And then the more the season went along and the more you saw the fan base, I think the fan base just sort of was done. Was another important factor to remember. So the fact that you weren't just losing games, that, A&M comes in and just dominates you on your home turf. You go to Ole Miss and you're able to put up, you actually had a huge game on the ground, Kevin Harris did, but you just could not stop them to save your life. And, I think for South Carolina, it was a sense of, man, how bad is the roster that they're getting beat the way they are? Now, I do think you have to also acknowledge once Beamer got in here and sort of breathed some new life into the place, we saw, hey, there was some untapped talent on this roster. It wasn't that the roster was just devoid of players. I think a big part of the early Beamer era and having that success that they did, overachieving in year one, was taking that talent that, again, it was there. It had to be there in order for this to happen. But also, you give Beamer and that staff credit for kind of re-energizing those guys, giving them confidence to go out and play at a higher level. But yeah, the perception at the time was not good at all for South Carolina.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. And first of all, I respect actually a lot what Matt Rule's saying there. I mean, not a lot of coaches are going to go, I think, that in depth in defending the previous guy. A lot of guys don't say anything at all, or they like to say, wait till I get my guys in, or this place was wrecked when I got here. And so I kind of appreciate that, actually. Clearly, it didn't go well enough for Frost. Clearly, it didn't go well enough at South Carolina, and that's why there's a coaching change. And it was, in some ways, the ending was so fascinating, right? I think it really started, Wes, it's been a while since we talked about this, but I really think it started after the 2018 season, 7-win season for South Carolina in the regular season, pretty good year. But then the Virginia game happens, right? The Virginia Bowl game. Then you go forward to 2019, it's 4 wins. Then you go to 2020, it's 2 wins. You have COVID. There's just much more of kind of a misery in the air. And to compound the problem, Clemson was really good. They won 2 national championships from 2016 up until that point when Will Muschamp was let go. And they were generally getting beat very soundly in those games. You actually got a pass during that 2020 season not playing that game, right? But I think we all kind of anticipate what the result might have been in that game or could have been. So at the same time, very fair to point out that, like, Will Muschamp had just signed actually a very good recruiting class for the 2020 class. You know, that class had Marshawn Lloyd and Jaheim Bell and Jordan Burch. Now, those guys all ended up transferring that I just mentioned, but you had them at the beginning of the Shane Beamer era. You left guys like Tonka Hemingway. You had begun the process and got TJ Sanders committed. He ended up being a holdover. You had Cam Smith, Darius Rush on that roster. Like, you left some guys. And Shane Beamer deserves all the credit in the world for revitalizing some of those guys. You know, would Darius Rush without Torian Gray have turned out the way he did? You know, I don't know. I think there's a good argument for the development he did. So it was definitely in a tough place. I think just from an overall standpoint, there was still talent on the roster. But you're right, Wes. I mean, they couldn't stop anybody defensively. The slide was kind of evident, right? When you go from the Virginia Bowl game to the 4-win season to the 2-win season, you had COVID on top of that. The outlook and the trajectory, a lot of people threw around that word during that season. The trajectory just didn't look as promising. And I think that's why there ended up being a coaching change here.
Well, if the Virginia game was the beginning of the end, you got to remember, you ended that season with, Carolina did not compete in that game at all. And then you started the next season in the same stadium against a UNC team that had a freshman quarterback and had just had a coaching change. And so, they bring in Mack Brown. You're in, you're supposed to be getting into the point where you have your coaching staffs, their players are all on your roster. You're supposed to be getting into, like, the foundational years of what that era is going to be. And UNC just beats you with a freshman Sam Howell when you have a veteran quarterback at South Carolina. So that started your next year. At the middle of that year, you had a brief sort of burst of hope with the win at Georgia, but then you follow that up where you have a lead at home against number 9 Florida, and you can't hold the lead. And then you finish the year a loss at Tennessee. You do beat Vandy, but then App State comes into your house and beats you on your home turf. You go to A&M, it's not close at all, and then Clemson beats you at Willie B, not close at all. So that was how you ended. So those 3 losses. Also, you lost 5 of 6 at the end of 2019, going into a COVID year, and then. If you look at the end of that COVID year, a lot of people forget South Carolina, the first 4 games, they're 2-2 with a win over number 15 at the time, Auburn, a close loss to Tennessee, and a somewhat competitive game at number 3, Florida. And then what happens after that? You reel off 6 straight losses, including 52-24 at LSU, 48-3 to A&M, and then 59-42 at Ole Miss. That 3-game stretch, combined with all the other context that Chris and I just talked about, is what led to Muschamp being let go. And it was obviously after that Ole Miss game that it happened. So the perception was probably that there was less talent on this roster than there truly was, but some of that talent was kind of buried, I think.
Yes, you couldn't really tell as much because of those results, right? And it's kind of hard to say, like, why was that? But that's how it happened. And you're right. I mean, Muschamp, despite those results that we laid out from the Virginia game on the 2019 season, because it was a COVID year, was generally thought, and I would go beyond generally thought, like, was safe. But guys are only safe until they're not, right? And the LSU game really started that because you went there, you had TJ Finley, who I think is still playing college football somewhere at his 8th school.
I thought he was in jail. Did he get out of jail? He got arrested for something.
Really?
Yeah, didn't he get arrested for breaking into a car or something like that?
They might have. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the LSU game started at West. You remember that A&M game. Carolina could not do anything in that game. 48-3 at home. That almost sealed it. And it was, you basically went into that Ole Miss game like, unless they win, it's over. And then we saw them give up 59 points to that team, and that was kind of that. So yeah, I think it just really came down to like the trajectory, how they finished. Wes, you did better than I could at laying out like how that happened, why that was. But it was not, it was in a place to where you understood why it happened. And there was honestly, there was some talent on the roster, but still a good bit of work to be done once Shane Beamer got hired.
And I'll never forget, you had Lane Kiffin throwing a clipboard up into the air before a pass even hit for a touchdown. So just that game felt embarrassing as it happened too.
We'll expand on this a little bit more coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Todd West, Chris with you on your Thursday here on the game. Reminder again, Jay and Terry going to be out the nest today from 3 until 6 for the post-game show at 1331 Gadsden Street, right down the street from us here in the Vista. Continuing this conversation, which again stems from Matt Rule's comments yesterday at, what we got, Wes?
Not completely Gamecock related, but somewhat.
Okay.
The most, I would say, arguably, allegedly, the most punchable face in the SEC has been reportedly extended through the 2029 season.
So,
y'all know who I'm talking about without me even saying their name.
I'm going to assume that's Eli Drinkwitz.
Yes, correct. What, are y'all surprised?
No. Again, they're coming off of multiple 10-plus win seasons. Seems to have the program in a good place. I remember he got the extension 2 years ago, coming off the heels of being 500 through his first 2 years.
Yeah, good call.
I forget what that extension was through, maybe 27 or something like that. But now he's actually finally winning, so it does make sense. And, he's one of those coaches that you feel like could use Missouri as a stepping stone to go somewhere else. So I'm sure they want to make sure they got him locked in for as long as possible.
Interesting timing on this, right before the season, obviously. But this is official as well. It's not reported. Missouri itself, Chris, has announced Drinkowitz's extension.
That in various ways.
Oh, hold on, Chris. We got to readjust you here. You're coming in.
Chris is talking through
a little bit
fan.
Funky. You're talking through a fan here. Let's
or the Matrix.
Or the Matrix. Sounds like a robot. We'll try and reset him here and get that to work again. But no, that makes a lot of sense. And again, Missouri in a pretty good place right now. Now, I think this year is going to be interesting considering all they lost talent-wise. Theo Weiss, Luther Burden Jr., all those guys. Obviously, Brady Cook's no longer there. You've lost good running backs over the past couple of years. So this may be kind of a reset type of year. But he's proven he can win. And, a place like Missouri, you don't have to take Missouri to the national championship. If you can make them a consistent winner in the SEC, they'll keep you around.
Yeah, they find ways to stay around in games, too. Like I've always said, Drinkowitz probably one of the most annoying coaches to coach against, I got to imagine.
Well, he coached that App State team you were talking about a few minutes ago.
He did. And that same deal, they just hung around in that game. Carolina had the better team this season.
Yep.
And Missouri was down early. Carolina went for it on a lot of fourth downs and kind of tried to put the game away. Missouri kind of went against the grain from what everybody thinks you do these days and just said, hey, we're going to kick field goals. They almost kind of played field position even though they were losing. And the next thing you know, they're driving to win the game, really twice at the end. And South Carolina had to go make plays. So, it really, in a lot of ways, though, it is kind of a good fit, as annoying as Drinkwitz can be, because I think Missouri is a place you are going to need that guy that can do a little bit more with less.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've done that. Now, I'll be curious to see without Cook, who really emerged as a really steady, good SEC quarterback, are they able to get strong QB play this year or not?
Let's try that again, Chris.
Guys, do I still sound like Darth Vader?
No, you're good now. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Went to Star Wars mode. What I was saying through the fan is that, Drinkwitz has kind of been tied to South Carolina, like, for most fans in a negative way. He, like y'all just laid out, coached that App State team. South Carolina had that very painful streak of why can we not beat this guy? But he's a pretty good example of, like you said, Wes, the fit. And then also, I think he's had the recent success with just winning 10 games, winning 11 games in 2023. But before that, guys, he was worse than a 500 coach. He came in during COVID, 5-5. Everybody's kind of like, hey, it's a COVID season, whatever. We don't really know. Let's see. He went 6-7 back-to-back years. And 2023 was honestly a huge season for him. And he delivered, of course, with a team that went 11-2, but he kind of shows how if you think you're on the right track, if there are signs that you're on the right track, patience can be a virtue for your football program. So not surprised that they extended him. I mean, another coach though, honestly, if you talk to people around Missouri, there were times where you're like, is Eli Drinkwitz going to be around next year? But they stuck with him, and now they've gotten some pretty good results from him.
Well, that means we get more Eli Drinkwitz press conferences to look forward to because, as I said last week, he's become the most quotable coach in the SEC, and he fully embraces that. So that for that at least, we can be happy. And again, you'll see them coming up this year in the road on the road in Como early on in the season. Getting back to the conversation about the state of the South Carolina program when Beamer took over in 2020, I was combing back through message boards when thinking about this topic yesterday, and I got all the way back to those days leading up to him getting hired and after he was hired and the conversations around him. And, I think everybody was obviously, you didn't know what to expect from a head coaching standpoint because he'd never done it before, but everybody loved his personality. They loved the fact that he loved South Carolina, talking about his time here previously as an assistant. And one thing that I think I've learned in my last 3 years covering the respective sports teams here, you got to have someone that wants to be here, right? And there was the notion that Will Muschamp doesn't really, invest himself in the community of South Carolina. You can even say Steve Spurrier, wasn't as ingrained as other coaches have been in the community itself. But Beamer loves it here. Beamer's made no bones about that. He loves Columbia, wants to be here for a long time. And I think it takes that level of care to be willing to try and build what this program is. And again, we're only 4 years in and hopefully a long time to go, but Beamer's done a really good job of that, and he's been embraced by this fan base because of how endearing he is towards them.
Yeah, and I think one of Beamer's strengths is if you go to one of the events, whether it's a Gamecock Club event, whether it is, him doing his call-in show, or shoot, you may see him and his wife going for a walk down, on the sidewalk in Columbia. Like he is just a typical person who is also a highly successful SEC football coach. Like I think that's a little bit rare. He is very just ingrained in the community around here, and I think he excels, especially early on when you're trying to sort of let people get a feel for who you are, what you want the program to be about. Excelling in those kind of in those positions where it's like, all right, this may be a 30-second interaction for me, and if I'm Shane Beamer, I have to have 1,000 of these, right? But to that person, it's, oh, I met Shane Beamer. And how you interact with that person is either going to be a great story they're going to tell all their friends, or it's going to be, well, hey, I met Shane Beamer, and he was kind of rude to me. Like, and you can have 999 positive interactions, and then you're kind of having an off day, and maybe you don't give somebody the time of day for the 1,000th person, and they're going to tell all their friends about it. So I think excelling in those interactions is certainly important, and it is a strength of Beamer's.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the example that popped in my head with you talking about that, Wes, you'll remember we had someone who was in middle school on the station, and I kind of took him around on a job shadow day, and probably fully convinced him not to take this line of work, to be honest with you. But seriously, got to take him around on signing day. He was here during Nick Carber's presser on signing day, Wes, when you were up in D.C. Took him to Shane Beamer's press conference. He answered a question, and of course, Shane Beamer comes up after the press conference, walks up the stairs, comes and talks to the kid, asks him his name, all about him. And it was just really cool to see. So you've got to have the goods as a coach, of course, because those types of things will only get you so far, but they matter. And they can matter when you're building your program. They can matter when times get hard. And it seems like that's how Shane Beamer wanted to build his program when he got a chance. This is the job he wanted. And it does seem like that's what Ray Tanner and Chance Miller were really looking for. They wanted to find a coach that really wanted to be here, could check a lot of those boxes, and could try to build a true program. And so those things matter, when you're looking at that.
Obviously, a good 4 years so far, and hopefully year number 5 can fall in line as well. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. What's your thoughts on Week 0? Firehouse Subs text line next on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris wrapping up the show here on your Thursday. Did just get some confirmation a little bit earlier on this morning. We're going to be out at our next Firehouse Subs location coming up this Tuesday out in Orangeburg. It's one of the few places I feel like locally we have not checked off the list in terms of Firehouse Subs locations, but excited to get out there and take in everything that they have to offer this time around.
As always, actually ready to try the new version of the triple stack.
Yep.
We've had the classic triple stack before. Have not had the Carolina Gold. Maybe y'all have. I haven't. So
I have not.
Looking forward to trying that.
That sounds pretty good to me.
I'm ready for it. By the way, guys, let's just set this up. I can't remember if we talked about this. Overall, on your barbecue sauces, are y'all vinegar? Are y'all mustard? Are you Alabama white? Like, do you have maybe a power ranking of those?
Ooh.
That is, I mean, I love how Chris just casually brings up a human-defining trait.
Very divisive topic.
Yes. That deserves more than 5 minutes at the end of the show, I feel like.
Definitely does.
I think I maybe lean towards mustard a little bit.
Really? Being a Georgia guy?
Yeah.
Do y'all have that in Georgia?
We do. We have everything in Georgia.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I mean, I like vinegar, but if you gave me the option between the two, I'd probably go with mustard first, personally.
That's a Midlands thing. Like, that's... even though it is a Midlands thing, vinegar is more, typically, and it is, a lot of places carry them all now. Vinegar is more of a North Carolina thing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the vinegar sauce. I really like a vinegar red, where it's more of like it's like a tomato base, but it has the what's the word? It's almost like a tartness of the vinegar.
Uh-huh.
That's my favorite, but I actually literally will eat any of them if they're good.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards something with a little bit of sweetness to it as opposed to the tartness. And you can have too much vinegar in there that can kind of affect the flavor of the meat sometimes if you're not careful.
What's your answer, Chris?
Well, I mean, vinegar overall. If you go to like Clarendon County, like when my wife has a lot of family there, and we'll have a pig picking, and you don't need any sauce. Like it's just laid out in the open. I think they use some type of vinegar sauce or something. I don't know how. I wish I knew how they do it because I would probably eat it all the time. But you don't need any sauce. You just grab it, eat it. Like, that's my preference. Low maintenance. Mustard is probably my last. I will say that.
Okay. We can.
But if good and done right, I still like it.
We can have a full-fledged debate on mustard, on barbecue and hot sauces next week at Firehouse Subs. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
I saw Preston Thorne walk through here earlier. I feel like he may want to be involved in that.
Okay,
Maybe we can get him on the phone.
Absolutely. I'm down with that. Quickly, we asked the question earlier on in the hour, what's your thoughts on Week 0 as Wes continues to deny Week 0, and apparently he's pulling Chris along as well as a Week 0 denier.
What do the people say?
The people are saying, Trey and Casey, Week 0, football equals good. Nick on y'all side says Week 0 sucks. Nameless Texter, it's college football. Of course I love Week 0. Ethan says it's like preseason for the NFL. It's good background noise. That's about it. So I'd say we're about split right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Chris, any thoughts?
No, I'm with it. It's just not super compelling. Like, if you're gonna, and we've talked about this. Like, the calendar keeps getting moved back. You talked about this on a recent show, Tyler. Like, keeps getting moved back and back. I feel like eventually we're going to July 4th kickoff game. Like, I feel like we're going to eventually get these like super early games. But
sure.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, no offense, Iowa State and whoever I said that earlier they were playing in Week 0 in Ireland. I mean, I just don't think it's just not a lot of meat on the bone there for me.
Now, do you guys get into like Maction and Fun Belt stuff during the week, like during football season?
I'll watch it a little bit.
Background.
Yeah.
Okay.
Background noise.
Not background. I mean, I'll watch it, but there's a lot of work going on during the season too. So
fair.
I'll be doing something on my computer and I'll throw that on.
Okay.
Basically.
What do you have against Kent State, Wes?
Disrespect.
Well, for one, they're not very good right now, but just making sure you guys are up on your midweek college football.
Yeah.
By the way, the ACC set to dominate Friday nights according to Jim Phillips this week.
See, I'll say this. I think Friday nights are for high school football.
He basically said there's no day that's sacred anymore, so why not?
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so we're almost there. 38 days till kickoff. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Coming up next, it is halftime show with myself once again as Bill Gunter is out this entire week. Again, don't forget on Tuesday we're going to be out at the Firehouse Subs in Orangeburg. Come by and see us. Going to be hanging out from 9 until noon all morning long. You're listening to the game.
Before I hand the mic back to Tyler, let me tell you about, as always, our friends at Firehouse Subs, presenting sponsor of this show. Like Tyler told you, we'll be live again next Tuesday from the Firehouse Subs in Orangeburg. So if you're in the area, come by, say what's up. We'll be live from 9 a.m. to noon. Come out and get your favorites or come out and try something new like the Smokin' Barbecue Triple Stack with Carolina Gold, as we talked about, and get into our conversation about your favorite barbecue sauce. Or if you want to try the classic, which has a darker, sweeter barbecue sauce on that, they have brought back that version of the Smokin' Barbecue Triple Stack as well. I'm sure we'll try them both. I'm sure we'll have our favorites as well. Brisket, add bacon, always my favorite. But guess what? You don't have to wait till Tuesday. It is lunchtime. Hit up firehousesubs.com. Hit up the Firehouse Subs app. Order your lunch right now from Firehouse.